Stand Up.
Hello, friends, and welcome to today's very special episode of Stand Up. Why is it so special? It's not, but I do have David Cay Johnston joining me, and he is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter who's one of the all-time greats here on the show, and he does not disappoint. If you want to jump to my conversation with David, it begins at 30 minutes in today. But I do have your headlines and a clip show for you, and it is ad-free. No ads on this show, but I can't do it without your paid subscription. Go to patreon.com/PeteDominic or Substack at Stand Up with Pete, where I am live most days and will be today at some point. Not sure when, but yesterday I spoke with David Cay Johnston and the president of the Florida Education Association, the biggest teachers union. My friend Andrew Spar joined me. Both those are on Substack and YouTube forever. Well, how are you doing? I've heard from a few people who are not doing great for any number of different reasons. I too have been struggling, been sluggish, been feeling a little down. I'm doing okay. Not deeply depressed or anything. I'm not in a crisis or spiraling, but man, it's been a little bit dark, a little bit gray. I'm not sure exactly what it is for you or what it is for me, but just know that you are not alone. You are never alone, especially if you're a member of the stand-up community. Then you've got friends everywhere. I've got friends everywhere, and it makes me feel great whenever I can do something to help folks. As a reminder, try to get out there and do something good for others, and there's plenty of good that needs to be done. And make sure you take care of yourself. Get outside, journal, meditate, write, read, all of the things. And I'm usually talking to myself as a reminder when I say that. So just wanted to mention that little mental health check-in. I know people are struggling right now for any number of reasons. And if you are a woman over 50, listen to Gillian Anderson, who has some great advice. I saw this video yesterday. My old friend Katie Couric shared it, and I thought it might be a good stuff kind of way to start.
Sorry, can I have a minute of your time? Thank you. I'll get straight to the point. I'm sure you're busy, but it's important. There's something really crazy, concerning, ridiculous going on. Apparently, women over 50 are disappearing, becoming invisible. I know, it's like a Hollywood plot twist. You're noticed, you're needed, you're whistled at, you're even hit on, and then poof, a few years later, you don't exist. You're in the way. They wonder what the hell you're still doing here. Come here, stay with me, I'm not done. You see, it's about more than just women on screen. It's everywhere in our society. Some people, gentlemen, the youth of today, sometimes forget that we're their mothers, their sisters, friends, spouses. It doesn't seem to shock anyone, or for that matter concern anyone, that we become invisible. Nor, I might add, does it occur to us that when we judge other people, when we participate in ageism, we're forgetting that the very same thing, in time, will happen to us. And so why not be curious? Embrace it. Admire it. Celebrate it. Respect it. Come back here. Come on. I'm getting to the point, because even if you think I'm easy to dismiss as an angry, menopausal feminist, the fact is, I have never felt better. I've never felt more alive, in my skin, clear-headed, purposeful, free of self-judgment. And while my body might be surprising me and frustrating me sometimes, in truth, I feel like I have gained, not lost, gained. Gained perspective, confidence, wisdom, and definitely, if not more than ever, the desire to say, off. Hey, fuck off. I'm not going anywhere. Fuck off. I don't deserve that. Fuck off. I'm not going to disappear. I'm a voice and a mind and a body, stronger and more present and more unfiltered than ever. And if you can't see that, if you can't see me, then you can fuck off too, because I'm worth it. Okay, you can go now.
Man, I loved that. I love that a lot. I hope you did as well. I hope that was a sampling of the good stuff to get you started today here on another episode of Stand Up. Tell your friends. All right, let's get to the headlines from yesterday. Well, His A-Holiness says that the Iran ceasefire is on, quote, life support after rejecting unacceptable peace proposal from Tehran. Iranian officials insisted yesterday that their latest offer was, quote, reasonable and generous as the deadlock raised the threat of a renewed conflict. CBS reporting the Iranian government insists it demanded only the country's legitimate rights and no concessions in response to the latest peace proposal. The Ayatollah rejected Iran's reply as totally unacceptable. Oil prices surged again yesterday after His A-Holiness dismissal of the Iranian counterproposal, with international benchmark Brent crude topping $100 a barrel in early trading. Also reporting from CBS as Pakistan positioned itself as a diplomatic conduit between Tehran and Washington. It's quietly allowed Iranian military aircraft to park in its country, potentially shielding them from U.S. airstrikes. Days after the commander-in-chief announced the ceasefire in early April, Tehran sent multiple aircraft to Pakistan. How about that? Lindsey Graham says, if this reporting is accurate, it'll require complete reevaluation of the role Pakistan's playing as mediator between Iran, the U.S., and this ham biscuit I'm eating, as well as any other parties. Given some of the prior statements by Pakistani defense officials towards Israel, I'd not be shocked if this were true. You know what I would be shocked by? If I was into ladies. The Iranian parliament speaker says that our armed forces are ready to deliver a well-deserved response to any aggression. Mistaken strategy and mistaken decisions will always lead to mistaken results. The whole world has already figured this out. Boy, he speaks in a lot more clear statements than our leadership does. Well, Khan Wan told CBS yesterday that he intends to suspend the federal gas tax for a period of time and then phase it back in when gas goes down, suspending the excise taxes, which is 18.4 cents per gallon on gas, 24 cents on a gallon of diesel. Well, that requires an act of Congress, and Congress has so far shown very little interest in suspending it to bring down costs. Gas prices have soared over 50% since the start of the war in Iran on February 28th, hitting a high of over $4.52 on Sunday. What are you paying for gas? Who's paying over $5? That's what I want to know. Just email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com, and send a picture of the gas prices where you're at in your neck of the woods. Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, then introduced legislation to suspend the gas tax. Khan Wan expected to encourage China to pressure Iran into making a deal to end the costly war during his visit to Beijing tomorrow. I think he's going to meet with President Xi Jinping. I'm sure it'll go great. And I'm sure the Chinese leadership will do whatever this idiot wants. It's going to be fine. I'm sure that meeting would just be fine. Also yesterday, apparently, Bobby Jones called John Roberts, the Fox News anchor, not the Supreme Court justice. And Roberts said, when I talked to the president this morning, he kind of surprised me because he said, John, I just want to tell you, I'm very serious about this. I'm serious about beginning a process to make Venezuela the 51st state. What? Well, White House spokesperson Anna Kelly said this is a president who's famous for never accepting the status quo. Trump told Fox in a phone call that he's seriously considering making Venezuela the 51st state. So he says there's $40 trillion in oil there and that Venezuela loves Trump. I mean, what an unbelievable madman. This is going nowhere, just like Greenland and everything else, but it'll be a distraction and something that people talk about. More importantly, I'm sure it'll get the Venezuelans up in arms. What percentage of Venezuelans want to become American, do you think? Well, at least we'd be better at soccer. The Supreme Court keeping mifepristone available by mail for at least 3 more days, making Thursday the next deadline to watch for the full court to weigh in the nationwide issue. I don't think they're going to like it. A UN humanitarian chief named Tom Fletcher said that more than 100 strikes have been launched on Lebanon over the past 24 hours. So I don't think there's a ceasefire there. There's a newly revised death toll from the boat strikes. It's now 192 people that we've murdered in these boat strikes. The U.S. military Friday conducted its 3rd boat strike in 5 days against a vessel it accused of smuggling drugs, killing 2 and leaving 1 survivor at large. Just leaving him there, apparently, according to Southern Command in a social media post. A federal appeals court on Friday allowed members of Congress to continue to conduct oversights to visit immigration detention facilities without a 7-day notice. One judge saying the Department of Homeland Security did not show the visits were anything more than an administrative inconvenience. More than 2,500 scientists said in a letter to Congress on Monday that Flacido Domingo's dismissal of the National Science Foundation's Oversight Board was a, quote, alarming attack on research funding that could put the United States at a disadvantage with rivals, especially China. I think it's important that people realize, I think most people that listen to this show realize that he doesn't care about us. He doesn't care about America. He is not a patriotic American. He doesn't want to see America first or America strong. He just wants to enrich himself and his family at the expense of the rest of us. It can't be said more clearly, unless it was said by Gillian Anderson in her British accent that you heard earlier. The New York Times has a story that behind the scenes, Robert F. Kennedy is investigating vaccines. They say at the behest of the White House, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has toned down his public criticism of vaccines, but behind closed doors, he is spearheading a vast inquiry examining his long-held theory that vaccines are helping to fuel an epidemic of chronic disease. The effort is being led by a vaccine safety expert named Martin Kulldorff, who rose in prominence during the pandemic as a critic of vaccine mandates. It has raised alarms among some vaccine scholars who fear that Kennedy will use the findings to further erode confidence in vaccines, which the WHO estimates to have saved 154 million lives over the past half-century. In other health news, 16 Americans from a cruise ship that experienced hantavirus outbreak arrived at the National Quarantine Unit in Nebraska, the nation's only such federally funded center. An immunotherapy treatment has showed promise that a single shot could offer lifelong relief from HIV. If only we had that in the 80s. It's amazing. What a miracle. And yet RFK wants to get rid of vaccines and shots like that. We learned yesterday the repairing and painting of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool are now going to cost $13 million, more than 7 times what Trump initially said it would. I'll do it for one. I'll do it entirely myself with a set of paint rollers for $1 million. How about that? So ugly and so stupid and so unnecessary, and we should paint over it as soon as we possibly can. Okay, now let's get to the clips that I've got for you. I don't have any of the clips from the roast of Kevin Hart, but there was some really good stuff there, particularly Chelsea Handler destroying a whole bunch of shitty men that I know that are on the dais, including this guy, Tony Hinchcliffe, and everybody else destroying that guy as well. It was really good. I encourage you watch it. It's pretty entertaining, I thought. A lot of people don't like those roasts. I get why. They're really mean, but as a comic and as someone who appreciates the joke, I usually don't get too offended by them, and I appreciate what they're trying to do, as horrifically mean and awful as it is. I'm pretty entertained by it. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, I don't have any audio from it, but I did watch it and I recommend it, I got to say. All right, let's move on to what I do have for you. First, Trey Crowder, the comedian, one of the liberal rednecks, very, very popular guy. He has one of his car rants where he ends with, I think, a pretty cool change.org petition that he created. So let's start with Trey.
Hey, y'all, I want to talk to y'all about something for a minute. You remember how during COVID, a bunch of people got in their heads that the COVID vaccine would, make you autistic and magnetic to spoons and put Wi-Fi in your brain and turn your heart gay and all this stuff? And because all these people got that in their heads, and the public discourse was like, vaccines, are they the most impactful and miraculous medical advancement in the history of mankind, or a plot from big autism, or whatever it was? And remember how one of the leading voices in that discourse was the scion of an American political dynasty who had a penchant for scraping dead animals off the road and doing weird shit to them. And so when Trump got reelected, he was like, we should put that guy in charge of the country's health. Remember how all that happened? Right. Well, in case you forgot, the COVID vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. So one of the first things RFK Jr.'s HHS did was they defunded $500 million worth of mRNA-based respiratory vaccine research, stuff like COVID and the flu. Basically, if you got something that's going to make you cough to death, the government says, suck it up, deal with it, figure something else out. And that's not good. I don't think they should have done that. But what I didn't fully understand at the time is that a lot of scientists and researchers in this field are worried that decision could have disastrous ripple effects on all kinds of other medical research too, like cancer. We all have experiences with cancer. Lost my dad to pancreatic cancer in 2013. It's the most brutal thing I've ever seen in my life. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but they've made incredible progress in treating pancreatic cancer, primarily using mRNA-based science. And that's true for a lot of diseases. And like I said, these doctors and researchers in these fields are worried that the progress they made could be threatened now because of this COVID-era hysteria and people hating the letters mRNA and wanting to stick it to Fauci or whatever. And there's a lot of ways it could happen. You know, they could lose private investors. They could lose gifted researchers to other less controversial fields. They share a lot of the infrastructure with the respiratory researchers. It's a real thing. All right, so what's my point? Well, a few weeks ago, the people at change.org came to me and were like, you should make a petition. And I was like, I didn't go to petition school. I don't know nothing about that. I didn't want to make one just because they asked me to. I didn't want to do it unless it was something personal to me, you know. But shortly thereafter, I found out about this issue, and I thought, well, here we go. So I called my buddy Matt Hildreth at ruralorganizing.org. He helped me put together my first ever petition. How about that? Yeah, and it's simple call to action, straightforward. We're demanding that RFK Jr. and the HHS publicly, explicitly commit to not allowing cancer research to become collateral damage for their COVID-based assault on all things mRNA, right? That's it. Seems like anybody should be able to get behind that, you know, unless you like cancer. If you like cancer, don't sign it, I guess. But otherwise, I hope y'all take a look at it. We got sources and everything's very scholarly. We're proud of it. I'll put the link in the comments and in my bio and everywhere. I'll post about it separately, and I hope y'all look at it because we think this is important, y'all. Some things are still important, so I hope you'll check it out. Either way, thanks for listening. That's it. Love you. Bye.
Yeah, I put a link in the show notes to that petition if you want to sign it. Maybe it'll be a reason to get Trey back here on the show as well. All right, here a few very important clips about voting rights. Here's Ari Berman of The Nation magazine explaining John Roberts' history here. And I know you've heard this before from Siegel and others, but it bears repeating. I feel like I want to memorize this to be able to explain it to my kids, their kids, and everybody else. But more importantly, everybody right now. Ari, take it away.
The recent Supreme Court decision in Louisiana versus Calais effectively killed the last remaining provision of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It was authored by Justice Samuel Alito, but it represents the life's work of Chief Justice John Roberts. The Roberts Court has now gutted the Voting Rights Act on 3 different occasions, and Roberts wrote or joined every one of those opinions. And that's not an accident. Roberts has been trying to kill the Voting Rights Act for more than 40 years, and it looks like he's finally succeeded. Roberts' crusade against the Voting Rights Act dates back to the early 1980s, when he was a young lawyer in Ronald Reagan's Justice Department. The Reagan administration was locked in a fight with Congress over whether to reauthorize parts of the Voting Rights Act and how strong the Voting Rights Act should be. Roberts took the position that the Voting Rights Act should be as weak as possible. Roberts claimed the Voting Rights Act would lead to a quota system in all areas, essentially comparing the law to affirmative action in the voting process. Roberts actually lost that fight in the early 1980s. The Congress overwhelmingly reauthorized and strengthened the Voting Rights Act with strong bipartisan support. But Roberts resurrected his crusade against the Voting Rights Act when he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 2005. Roberts claimed in his confirmation hearings that the constitutionality of the Voting Rights Act was a settled question. But once he got on the bench, he quickly got to work in dismantling the country's most important civil rights law. In the 2013 decision, Shelby County versus Holder, Roberts wrote the majority opinion, ruling that states with a long history of discrimination no longer had to approve their voting changes with the federal government. He claimed that things had changed dramatically in the South. But in the wake of his decision, 31 states have passed more than 115 new voter suppression efforts. Roberts claimed in the Shelby County decision that his opinion in no way affected the other major part of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, which banned racial discrimination in voting nationwide. But the Roberts Court quickly started attacking that part of the law as well. In the 2021 case, Brnovich versus DNC, authored by Alito and joined by Roberts, the Roberts Court made it much harder for voters of color to challenge discriminatory voting laws. And then in the recent Louisiana versus Calais decision, the Roberts Court struck down a second majority black congressional district in Louisiana and imperiled majority minority districts all across the country, leading potentially to the largest drop in black representation since the end of Reconstruction. They have now narrowed Section 2 and the Voting Rights Act overall to the point of irrelevance. The defining cause of Roberts and the Roberts Court has been rolling back the civil rights revolution of the 1960s. And it's clear they're not going to moderate on this issue anytime soon. That's why, if you want to protect civil rights in America, we have to have a new Supreme Court.
Indeed, indeed, we do. Good stuff from Ari Berman. And here's our friend Tim Wise, who's been making a whole bunch of videos and posting them, which I've been begging him to do. Here he is calling out the, quote, so-called radicals who still insist that voting doesn't matter.
So with the Supreme Court essentially gutting the Voting Rights Act and Southern legislature after Southern legislature moving to basically eliminate black political representation throughout the South, I'm hoping that we can, I don't know, maybe just agree on one thing, even if we disagree on a lot of other stuff. Can we just agree that all these supposedly radical and self-proclaimed revolutionary leftists who say things like voting doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference, the parties are all the same, can we just, I don't know, maybe agree that those people are absolutely full of shit? Because if voting doesn't matter, then riddle me this, revolutionaries, why the fuck are some people trying so damn hard to keep certain people, especially black people, from doing it, or at least keep them from doing it in a way that, I don't know, actually brings about outcomes that comport with their political desires, or keep them from doing it in a way that might actually, I don't know, allow people to represent them? If voting doesn't matter, if it doesn't make any difference, then why in the world would the ruling class spend so much time, so much effort, and so much of their money trying to keep certain people from being able to vote, or at least keep them from voting in a meaningful way? Now, obviously, I know that voting isn't the end-all, be-all. What we are doing on the other 364 days of the year, not called Election Day, that matters more to the project of overall liberation. But voting must matter. And for those who say it doesn't, or who say stupid shit on this platform like voting is just negotiating with fascists, fuck off. If you're not convinced otherwise, even after this last couple of weeks, you're pretty damn hopeless. Maybe what you need to do is, I don't know, just sit down and like read a book or something. And I don't mean a book written by Lenin or Rosa Luxemburg or Mao or some shit. I mean a book about Fannie Lou Hamer, about Ella Baker, Amzie Moore, Anita Blackwell, John Lewis, maybe the folks that got their ass beat on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You know, people who fought, some of whom died to make this country a better place, while most of the so-called revolutionaries were sitting around talking about a revolution that not a damn one of them, just like not a damn one of y'all actually has the guts or the intelligence to go and set off. The only reason that most people who say voting doesn't matter say that is because for the people who say it, it doesn't really matter because they've got enough privilege, enough advantage, and enough of a cushion to get through pretty much no matter what. But there are millions of people in this country, especially down here in the South where I'm from, where it matters a whole hell of a lot. So maybe y'all need to, I don't know, get out of your little revolutionary book clubs and your tanky enclaves and actually learn something about the country in which you live and the people who live in it and the struggles that they face every day.
Yeah, always listen to Tim Wise. Good stuff. And share that with your friends who are cynical about voting. Here is the young progressive influencer Adam Mockler on MS Now, Stephanie Rule's show. And somebody put music behind this, which sucks, but it's okay. It's fine. I like what he has to say here, and I think Democrats should take his advice.
Democrats have been unified by our opposition to Donald Trump, rightfully so.
But that's not enough.
It's not enough. You got to have your own forward-looking, exciting vision. So I think Democrats need to be putting side by side the cost of this war versus what we could be spending it on. I actually have some good stats here. So in New York, they did free school lunches for $300 million a year. Put that against the $50 billion, which is a conservative estimate for this war. We could have funded this across the country. How about in Connecticut? They have paid family leave. It was $450 million a year, and it is $5 million to start up. Put that against the $50 billion. It is a no-brainer. What about one more? In New Mexico, it costs $1.5 billion for free college. We could do that 20 times over with the $50 billion that we've spent. Americans are willing to make sacrifices for national security. You can explain this to Americans in a rational way. But what Trump said is no new wars, and we're going to end inflation. Now he started a new war that has spiked inflation so much so that Americans are scratching their head with no solid explanation.
All right, but what? All right, Stephanie Ruhle. I don't know. Okay, let's get to Congressman Robert Garcia, important event taking place in Palm Beach, Florida, where you're going to hear from actual survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's reign of terror. And I'll let Robert Garcia explain.
Tomorrow is actually a very important moment in this investigation. For the first time, we're going to hear directly from survivors in a hearing format where they'll be able to tell their stories. They'll be able to answer questions from the committee. We're also going to be hearing from some folks here on the ground that were very involved in Palm Beach and the way this investigation at the local and state level really unraveled. I mean, at the center of this, of course, is former Secretary Alex Acosta. Just the horrible job that was done by his then department and him as U.S. attorney in actually prosecuting and trying to bring justice for the survivors and to really go after other co-conspirators. And so those stories will be told tomorrow. We think it's going to be an important moment for this committee and the work that we're doing around the Epstein investigation. And so I expect tomorrow for there to be a lot of information both revealed, but also important questions being asked.
Yes, I hope that gets a lot more attention than hantavirus, because that's getting too much attention. All right, now let's go to Ro Khanna, because Congressman Ro Khanna was on, I think, Fox Business with Maria Bartiromo, whatever her name is. She is a sycophant and a bootlicker. And apparently this really upset Blob the Builder in the White House, because he wrote like a bunch of posts about Ro Khanna after he saw this, but it's so good.
The reality is when President Obama left, because of the great efforts of people like Valerie Jarrett, we had 97% of the enriched uranium out. The reality is we didn't have 13 American service members dead. The reality is we never had gas go up from $2.30 to $4. The reality is we did not give China more role in the region. Let me finish, Maria. I'll let you finish.
Okay,
we didn't give China more role in the region. We did not give the IRGC a more hardline regime in there. You know why? Because Obama actually did his homework. He actually tried to engage in statesmanship. He got China, Russia, the entire European allies on board with getting Iran on a path to not having a nuclear weapon. All Trump did is listen to Netanyahu. That's his entire foreign policy. And you know what? I resent the fact that Israel is going to tell the United States what to do. The American president should call the shots in this country.
Yeah. Wow. He got it in there. And old Fatty Shack didn't like it too much, but oh well. Okay. Now let's end with some comedy. It's Colbert last night on CBS Late Show, where he had his colleagues and the other late night hosts join him as his guests as he finishes up his 10-year run at CBS.
Yesterday, Trump spent Mother's Day sharing a bunch of reposted AI memes about just how great he is, including a picture of the last thing you see before being backed over in the Bass Pro Shop parking lot. He's not just spending his time reposter baiting. He's also engaging in some recreational idolatry, because last week Trump celebrated a new 22-foot golden statue of himself at his Miami golf club. Okay, surprisingly wrinkly. Looks like they forgot to steam out his pants, his shirt, and his face. And personally, I'd recommend adding a couple of handles to make it easier to pull down when we're liberated by the Canadians. The dedication was led by a MAGA pastor named Mark Burns, who posted about it afterwards in a totally normal way, saying, "Let me say this plainly, this is not a golden calf." A little suspicious to deny worshiping false idols before anyone accuses you of it. It's like going to Applebee's and the waiter saying, "Our specials tonight are the sirloin and the loaded baked potato, and as it says on my button here, our salad dressing is urine-free." The pastor, people, urine-free salad dressing is a people pleaser, clearly. The pastor addressed the controversy saying a golden statue to yourself is absolutely normal.
Of course he loved the statue. Who wouldn't love a statue of themselves? I mean, again, Michael Jordan loves a statue of himself. Allen Iverson loved the statue of himself. Shakira, the singer, loved the statue of herself.
Oh, Shakira, the singer. Thank you for clarifying. Otherwise, I would have thought you meant Shakira, the gynecologist. Hips don't lie. Now, scoot him down. And the reviews are in because several pro golfers were asked about the statue and had these glowing statements. It's his place. He can do whatever he wants. And it's big and gold. Damn. As compliments go, that ranks up there with, you got a haircut. Would you look at that? It is shorter. Did they use scissors?
All right, there you go. And it was a great episode because he had all of his colleagues, Tonight Show hosts, with him. And the times are a-changing, that's for sure. All right, let's get to my guest. It's time to talk to David Cay Johnston. You can watch this interview we were live on YouTube and Substack, and I love this guy. He is a best-selling author, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter. Go check out DC Report and follow him on all the social medias, Threads and Blue Sky. And I can't say enough about my friend David Cay Johnston. I'm always happy when he joins us. I always learn a lot. Yesterday was no exception. So let's do it. David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize investigative reporter and DC Report. Check it out. Great to see you. Thank you for joining me. I really want to talk to you.
Good to be with you again, Pete.
Happy anniversary. I saw that you just celebrated a big anniversary with your beautiful bride, who I got to meet this summer.
Yeah, 44 years.
Wow.
Not long enough.
Well, not long enough. I love it. How was this semester? This guy's never, ever slowing down. David Cay Johnston now at Rochester Institute of Technology.
This is a great career. You know, I got 40 years of investigative reporting, 18 years of writing columns and books and teaching on the side. And now it's 2 years of full-time being a professor, teaching criminal justice, law, journalism, and political science, and at Rochester Institute of Technology. And I just absolutely love it. I love the students I have. And in the fall, I'm going to teach white collar crime.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah,
that'll be.
I'm hoping it becomes so popular I get to teach it every single semester.
Well, the crime is very popular. We can talk about that. Of course. Years ago, I used to have you on to talk about any of the articles, but certainly the books that you wrote, Perfectly Legal and Free Lunch. You just made a video that you posted on your social media, Blue Sky and Threads, I saw it at least, about where the economy is and where it's going right now. And I was happy that you opened that video by basically going back in time and trying to mention the history and underpinnings, because long before we got to Trump and corruption and shooting ourselves in our own foot with things like a trade war and a hot war in Iran, there were already huge problems that made the rich richer and made the rest of us a lot less fortunate. Talk to me just a little bit about the history before we got here.
Well, in 1973, we had the peak year for the 90%. And that year, 37% of private sector workers were in a union. And about 80% of workers benefited as a result, because all sorts of companies were happy to pay union wages if they could get out of union work rules. And having been both an employer and been the head of a local union, I'm of the view that employers who have a union deserve one, because they got it because they didn't treat their workers well. Well, since 1973, things have not gone well for the 90%. So in Perfectly Legal, I did a little chart from average increase in income since 1970 for the bottom 90% at the end of the period. And if you measured this tiny increase in real income, more than inflation income, the 90% is 1 inch. How did the 1% of the 1% do, the plutocrats? 62.5 feet to 1 inch, $7,500 to $1 per person. Well, I just updated that chart, Pete. I added another 21 years to it, to 2021. And now it's minus 1 inch. People are making less than in 1973, in the bottom 90%, minus 1 inch to 2,356 feet. That's a half mile. It's a half mile, a negative 1 inch to a half mile. And what's happening in this country is we have created, as I warned in Free Lunch and Perfectly Legal and the fine print, a system where people at the very, very top are mining your wallet every day. And they are quietly siphoning through laws and rules and regulations that I laid out in all these books in plain English. A penny a day here and a nickel over there and $1 a month somewhere else. And when you take that from 90% of us and redistribute it to 1% of the 1% of us, you're now talking those 34,000 families are really doing well.
One of the things that we just never seem to take into consideration when we're evaluating wealth disparities and income disparities and wage inequities are health insurance. And it's such a huge driver of cost for people. And it's the leading cause of bankruptcy only in America, makes us special. And now we're headed in the wrong direction. We had healthcare reform that did a lot, but didn't go nearly far enough. Back in 2010, of course, the Supreme Court defanged it a bit, but still, nonetheless, there are these markets, these exchanges, but nobody takes into consideration how the cost of healthcare, and now you could add the cost of gas. We could talk about that as well, because that's making everything more expensive. But healthcare is a longer term issue and a much, much bigger one, harder to solve. Why don't we talk about healthcare cost?
Because people don't understand it and they don't want to think about it. I used to tell my law students when I was a law professor, by the way, I saw there were vendors on campus today selling, whatever. And I said, I wonder how many of you have been approached about buying kindergarten insurance? They look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, aren't there no booths selling kindergarten insurance? I mean, did something change? I mean, you're college students, you're law school students. Aren't you at an age where you do things that are known to create a need for kindergarten? Oh, that's right. You don't need kindergarten insurance. It's provided by the taxpayers as a service because we want to have an educated populace. Why do we have health insurance? And, Donald Trump and I were walking down the boardwalk one day back in the 88 or 89. I think it was the summer of 89. And I said, hey, Donald, you employ thousands of people. You spend a lot of money on health insurance. What do you think about our healthcare system? And Trump said, healthcare should be like the roads. When you need it, you just drive on it.
Sounds
and
pretty.
not the song he sings now, of course, which is denial of care and cutting care and taking it away from the poor and all these other things. But there was a time when corporate America supported universal national health care. It's so difficult to accomplish this that only 34 of the 35 richest countries in the world have managed to figure it out.
When we're looking at how much we spend on defense and how much that goes up in every budget, in every presidential term, in every Congress, and now specifically asking for an addendum to that to pay for the war, because $1 trillion isn't enough. Now you need $1 billion a day or so for this war. And then when you compare that with what that could cover, I mean, the point is the money's there. We print money, and yet we don't spend it on healthcare. We do spend it on, quote, defense.
Worse than that, Pete, both the 2017 and the 2025 Trump tax laws literally borrow money so that people like Donald and Elon Musk can pay little or no tax. I mean, that's crazy. Borrowing money so that people already have more than they can ever consume, so that Jeff Bezos can have his $50 million wedding and he can have his 500-foot yacht, which requires a 300-foot supporting yacht. We're borrowing money for that? I mean, this is absolutely nuts. And a big part of the reason is too many people go, politics, I don't want anything to do with it. It's all dirty stuff. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. That's why this is happening to you. We ultimately are to blame for our misery because enough people aren't voting. There's a funny thing about Texas. Texas keeps electing Republicans, even though for every person in Texas who says they're a Republican, there's 1.5 people who say they're a Democrat. So why do they lose? Well, somebody had a great line about that. Texas is not a blue state. It's not a red state. It's a we don't bother to vote state. And we can get universal health care. There is no reason to have a health insurance industry. Literally, there is no reason to have it. It is a superfluous industry. So, by the way, is title insurance. I showed in one of my books that you go buy a house, you'll spend about 1% of the purchase price. So if it's a $500,000 house, $5,000 on title insurance, when it could be offered by the banks as a service, because they're the ones really in interest when they issue a mortgage, for $25, and it would cover all their costs.
So much more to follow up and ask about that. But just looking at where we're at now, I made this assertion a couple weeks ago, and I wonder what you think of it, that Had Trump and Republicans come in and done nothing, the economy would be in pretty good shape because the investments that Biden and Democrats made in infrastructure and other places and the future of energy and so on. They were building manufacturing plants, energy plants and so on. But instead, Republicans cut taxes for people who didn't need them cut. And that was the only thing they did. And except for unilaterally started a trade war and then invaded Iran. What do you think of that assertion? Had they done nothing, things were humming along pretty good. But because they did these three things, tax cuts, trade war, hot war, it's really screwed things screwed things up.
If Donald had just played golf, we would be so much better off today. And what you're seeing now with the war in Iran, and I'm on international TV stations, England, Middle East, India, Australia, New Zealand, every day. And I get asked about this all the time. This war in Iran not only is completely nuts, but we're going to end up worse off than we were before because the Iranians do, in fact, hold the cards here. If Trump had gone around and gotten together a coalition and put together a 500,000-man army, the Powell Doctrine, that you only go in when you have to go in for critical reasons, then you go in with such overwhelming force that not only are you assured of victory, but rapid victory, it would be a different story. But Donald has insulted all of our allies, told them how they're stupid, they're cheating us, they don't know what they're doing, they aren't bowing down to him. So nobody's helping us, and nobody's going to help us, not even the Middle East countries like Saudi Arabia, who are terrified of the Iranian regime. They aren't even helping us. I mean, in minimal little ways, but nothing that constitutes the kind of change. I think history, and I'll be dead by the time this gets judged, but I suspect history will judge that it was the year 2026 when China finally moved ahead of the United States as the dominant power in the world. Thanks to Donald Trump's incompetence and that of all these people around him. And today, Pete, I saw a very funny little item on my social media. The headline on it was, "There really are people who believe this." And it was a guy in a MAGA hat who said, it's amazing what Donald Trump did. My gas tank used to hold $50 worth of gasoline, but now it holds $100 worth of gasoline. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but I want to vote for him again.
Yeah, it's like cutting things.
Stupid some people are.
Cutting things 600%. Drug cuts 600%. So I got to ask you simply about that, the energy, prices. I mean, what do you think that all this political punditry around what's going to happen next and this policy or that policy and the effect that it has on turnout and so on, yet really, and you mentioned, kind of apathy winning in a moment ago in a way, really the thing that motivates people more than anything else is the price of gas. Right now, it's like, high fours. Once you see that 5 come out, maybe 6. I know it's 7 in places in California right now. Isn't that going to be, and hasn't it been, the most motivating thing? And obviously has a ripple effect on the cost of everything else.
Yes, and diesel is even much more expensive than that. And airlines are beginning to cut back on flights because they can't get enough fuel to put in the planes. Well, if you got your pencils, folks, here's 3 numbers to remember. Under Barack Obama, we had almost 1,700 active drilling rigs for oil and gas. Under Joe Biden, we had almost 900. Under Donald Trump, we have about 540, and that's down a dozen or two from when he took office in 2025. I'm sorry, drill, baby, drill, and Obama had 3 times as many drilling rigs running. This is all just talk. There's no substance to what he's doing. He just makes wild claims. And if I can bring up one other one, Pete. Donald cut $1 billion that was going each year to public broadcasting, nonprofit NPR and PBS. You know what it would cost the states to replace that money? A penny a day per household. So in New York, if we had a penny a day per household spent on NPR and PBS, it would restore all the money Trump cut plus another $2 million. All people have to do is pick up the phone and call their friends, and then they and their friends call their state legislators and their local newspaper and their TV station and say, hey, for a penny a day, we can get back all the things we want from public nonprofit broadcasting. And there are parts of this country, right here in New York State, where the only warning you can get a tornado is coming or an unexpected sudden turn in the snowstorm, if you're up in the Adirondacks or the Catskills, is public radio.
Right.
So there's a bigger cost than this cuts that Trump made. But I don't understand people on my social media, people say, oh, that's a great idea. They don't say, oh, what's the phone number to call? How would I do that? With this powerlessness that Trump has persuaded us, you have no power. You can't do anything about it. That's nonsense. We have all the power, and you just saw that in Hungary, where the dictator Viktor Orban was turned out by such a large vote that he couldn't even think about turning to the military and suppressing the opposition. He had to walk away.
You can compare some of what Hungary did to a lot of what this incoming Trump administration has done. Apparently, Project 2025 was modeled after some of what they did there, Orban and Hungary. Got a lot of advice from Russia, apparently. But the most latest cheating move has been gerrymandering all of these different districts and then gutting the Voting Rights Act. They're doing everything they can to get the minority of Americans to have access to and be able to vote, and the rest of us have obstacles in our way. They cheat. They've been cheating. The whole system is a cheat. But what do you make of these latest authoritarian attempts? Yesterday, I heard that he posted that they would have an election integrity force. So that was predicted. The authoritarian move is to have poll watchers, military poll watchers. What do you make of all of this? And obviously, I want to specifically talk about the history of the Voting Rights Act and what it means that it was gutted.
So Donald Trump, by law, can't have military or law enforcement within 1,000 feet of a polling place. I can intimidate plenty of voters from 1,000 feet away. I have no difficulty doing that. The checkpoints, all sorts of other things. And we should expect this will happen in some locations. It's not going to happen where I live, but it's going to happen in various places around the country. Let me do two contrarian things here. First of all, let me praise John Glover Roberts for having achieved his lifetime goal as a white supremacist of making sure that black people have a tougher time trying to vote. His very first job out of Harvard Law School was with the Reagan administration Justice Department, where it was his duty to try to find ways to keep black people from voting. I mean, that's not what they called it, but that was the practical effect of what he was doing. And he has worked on this from day one. And when they first gutted part of the Voting Rights Act, what was his justification? Well, the conditions of 1965, when the Voting Rights Act were passed, have changed. We're not the same South anymore. Within hours of the passage of the issuance of that court decision, laws were beginning to be put in place to do exactly what was going on in 1965, minus the poll tax. And now, once again, he says, well, things have changed. We don't need this anymore. Nonsense. Of course we still need it. People fundamentally haven't changed. Now, let me offer a contrarian view about this redistricting business. If you live in a state that has a bunch of safe districts that are, say, 58% R and 42% as a result D, you got a really safe district. But to recut the districts, to eliminate whatever Democratic districts are strong, you're now going to have a bunch of Republican districts that are going to be 52% or maybe even 51% R, and they're going to be 48, 49% D. Well, that means all the Democrats have to do is turn out the vote and you win. Right. They are in a weaker position. The Democrats are, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. We must wring our hands. No. Get the vote out. Get people registered. Check and make sure they're registered. Get volunteers. Make it a national day of not going to work, and have people drive people to the polls. Call them up and say, I don't know if we can vote. We'll send a car, and you have to have two people in the car. You send a car and you drive people to the polls. And lawyers, every lawyer in the country should be leaned on. I don't care if you're right or left, to take a day of training on state election law in your state and be available pro bono on November 3rd. Yeah. I think that's election day, to help for people who are being turned away by polling officials so they can at least cast provisional ballots. And compared to the cost of buying TV ads, which political science research shows move about a third of 1% of voters, a tiny, tiny number of voters, spending money on going door to door, spending money on getting people turned out to vote, cheap as can be.
Yeah, all good advice. I hope that that's exactly what the Democratic Party does, and I hope what a lot of these legal organizations do, and independent lawyers as well. Say a little bit more, though, about the history, and I appreciate your optimism, but you mentioned John Roberts' lifelong ambition to kill voting rights. But, I mean, you've been around for a long time. You know what the civil rights movement led to with the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And you know that the United States Senate confirmed it when Bush was president, 96-0. It wasn't that controversial, and it was very necessary. Higher voting of black folks meant that it was working, right? Not the opposite. But how, when I think about John Lewis and I think about those who came before us and what they accomplished, it feels like it is our responsibility. Unfortunately, we're the ones we've been waiting for. But did you think we'd get here?
Yes, because, George Washington in his diary complained about the apathy of his troops in the Revolutionary War. Apathy is always a problem. In every single presidential election since 1788, when Washington was elected, the real winner didn't take the time to vote. And this was true even in the most recent election. And look, Kamala Harris comes out of nowhere, has about 100 days to campaign, has 2 strikes against her because she's black and she's a woman. And yet Donald didn't even get half the vote. I keep hearing, I go on these shows all the time, and Republicans try to say, well, he had an overwhelming victory. And I go, that's nonsense. He got less than 50% of the vote. And they go, but he won the Electoral College overwhelmingly. Oh, that's a real test of the people, what they think.
Right.
The Electoral College. When the Voting Rights Act was passed, Lyndon Johnson said to people in his inner circle that he's turned the South over to the Republican Party for at least a generation. And that's exactly what happened. But he did the right thing. And we shouldn't forget that all the way up through President Kennedy, racists were appointed to the federal bench in the South, routinely appointed. Lyndon Johnson comes in. He's a son of the South, poor sharecropper family, spent a year teaching or 2 years teaching very poor, mostly Hispanic kids in elementary school. And he stopped the appointment of racist judges. He started appointing people who weren't racists. And we don't want to address the fact that we live in a country with a Supreme Court that has on it 5 white supremacists, even if they don't appreciate that they're white supremacists, and one very much self-hating black man who holds the most bizarre views on race. There's a video of him with his wife where she expresses concern that if the Supreme Court, as he has urged, overturns the decision called Loving about a white man who married a black woman in Virginia, and the court upheld your right to marry whoever you want in terms of race. And Thomas says to his wife, who's white, oh, no, that won't apply to us, honey. Now, maybe he means they'll be grandfathered. I don't know, but it's indicative of these strange views that this man, who I don't think is qualified to be a traffic court judge, and I say this as the parent of a judge, has any business being on that court.
He's corrupt because of so is Alito and others because of the amount of money they've taken from Harlan Crow and other billionaires, which leads me to this kind of corruption that I don't know if maybe you did see this coming, but the oligarchy that has formed in this country and the fact that the federal government is now run by the most craven grifters you could possibly ever imagine, and including obviously Donald Trump and his sons, but his cabinet and so many others. What do you make of how we are at? How do we root this corruption out? You've been on that beat for a long time.
Well, last summer, my wife and I, being gluttons for punishment, went to Chautauqua, which I think of as Disneyland for intellectuals, and spent a week studying fascism and totalitarianism. And one of the things I learned from one of the lecturers was he had studied 7 fascist governments, including Salazar in Portugal, Generalissimo Franco, Mussolini, Hitler, and 3 others. And they all showed a very similar pattern to what Trump is doing. First, you appoint family members to very sensitive positions because you trust them. And then you appoint family retainers, people who are dependent on you. And then you make sure that you appoint incompetents, people who are not competent, people like RFK and Kash Patel. Why do you do that? Because you don't want the government to work well. You want people angry at the government, not at you, but at the government. And that's exactly the pattern that we're in. And we've appointed people who they don't know what they're doing. They have foul motives. They believe absolutely crazy things, RFK Jr. being example 1A. And you do your best then to keep the public busy looking at their screw-ups instead of what you're doing. And what is Trump doing? Well, let's see. He's destroying the thing that made America wealthy. More than half the increase in our gross domestic product since the end of World War II is because of taxpayer investments in basic science. Companies don't fund basic science. Things like the Ozempic and Wegovy and drugs like that we have came from a scientist with a government grant who was studying the saliva of Gila monsters. Why do Gila monsters? How does it they go 6 months without eating? How can they do that in the desert? And that got us these GLP drugs. Studying fruit flies and other things that are mocked by idiots who are in Congress and the Senate. William Proxmire with his Golden Fleece Award. Those are the things that lead to real scientific advances. Trump's Doge crowd ordered the end to all sorts of medical research studies because if they found the word woman in them, for example, they said, nope, your grant is over.
Right.
There are physicians here where I live in Rochester at the medical school who had projects that had been underway for 15 years and they were shut down. So basically we threw away all the money from those studies. Now they may or may not have produced something useful, but among the people I've seen appearing publicly are people who said, hey, look, we were on the cusp of starting trials of drugs. In one case, a vaccine against a particular kind of cancer. In another case, dealing with one of these horrible diseases of the nervous system where you lose control of your body. And they stopped all that. And the Chinese, meanwhile, they are forging right ahead with science into the future. You can buy in Mexico or in Canada now a perfectly serviceable basic car built by a company called BYD.
I rode in one of them in Amsterdam a few weeks back.
Yeah, and you found it just fine, I assume.
It was great.
$10,000. $10,000. The cheapest currently made American cars around 25 or 30. They are building a massive solar panel farms out in the desert, the cold, high desert. They are putting up wind turbines. They are reducing their consumption of oil.
Yeah.
They are trying to wean themselves off coal, although they're still burning a heck of a lot of coal. But China is going forward with serious investments. They have more than half of all the high-speed rail in the world. And how much does the U.S. have of high-speed rail? We don't have any. We have none, except the little short strip being built in California, and it's not really operational yet. The Trump administration is ruining our economy. Now, the stock market keeps going up because, first of all, people put money in their 401k plans. Every week there's a bundle of money that has to go into index funds that creates a market. B, about a third of all the corporate profits in America are now earned by 10 companies. Right. 10 companies. It's the Vanguard 500 is where I've historically put my money, but 10 companies. That's very, very narrow sort of base to have. And AI is finally the change that is likely to cost jobs. When I was in high school in the 60s, I think it was 64, 65, the debate topic for high school students was automation and whether it would create more jobs or fewer jobs. Well, so far, automation, computers, have created vastly more jobs and caused a lot more paper to be made and printed, which was not what was widely expected back then. But AI, you're already seeing Meta and Alphabet, Google's parent, and Microsoft laying off thousands and thousands of workers because they don't need them because of AI. And so we are remaking the American economy in another way. And China has AI that's more advanced than ours. And they want us to sell them various kinds of chips. And Trump is meeting, of course, with President Xi on Thursday.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if Trump gives up the ghost and says, yeah, you can have the chips. And we're going in the wrong direction because we're led by a man who I've spent hundreds of hours with. He knows nothing. It's all a con.
Yes.
He is the most ignorant person I know. I used to say about Donald doesn't drink, but trying to have a serious conversation with him is like talking to a drunk in a bar.
Let me just ask you finally, David Cay Johnston. Just saw this breaking that apparently there's some consideration to suspend the federal gas tax for a period of time. And obviously gas prices have soared. But I guess it's like 18 cents per gallon and 24 cents on diesel. It requires an act of Congress, and pausing the gas tax would cost the federal government about $500 million a week, according to, I think this is CBS. Yeah. What do you make of this stunt? Is it a stunt? Would it actually?
If you want to have more bridges that might collapse and potholes so that you've got to pay the other tax, which is the wheel alignment tax, then this is a great policy. And now what's really going on here is gasoline is going to go up. It's going to go past $5 a gallon. We have drawn down our stocks of refined products at the highest rate, or just about the highest rate ever. That can't go on forever. We are producing plenty of oil in the United States, but oil is a global commodity. Liquefied natural gas is a global commodity. And since Trump caused the Strait of Hormuz to be closed and 20% of oil and 25% of liquefied natural gas isn't available, prices have to go up. Yeah. And you know who's the big winner in this? China. I was writing, I think 15 years ago, but certainly more than 10 years ago, that China was buying all the oil it could and filling salt domes with oil. That's what we do here in America, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We find salt domes, we pump the oil back into the ground. And so they have lots of oil. Japan has a 30-day or so supply. South Korea, Vietnam, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, they've got 30, 60-day supplies, not a lot. And so China's in a position to ride this out better than any other major country. And they have a disciplined leadership that is focused on their long-term goals. As my best friend David Crook, the great editor David Crook, likes to say, China is like the Vatican. While Americans operate on the basis of 90-day earnings reports and 2-year election cycles, we're here forever.
Yeah. Yes. We've got the watches. They've got the time, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to learn. I want to think and talk a lot more with folks who understand what the hell is going on in China. This would be a good week to do it with Commander and Thief going there. But they certainly, the simplest way to say it is they seem to be investing in the future while we're investing in the past.
That is perfect. That's exactly what's going on. And listen, folks, please watch the video at DC Report where I talk about for a penny a household a day. Send it to your friends, send it to your state legislators, and tell them, get on the phone and call your state lawmakers. A penny a day for PBS. A penny a day for PBS and NPR. I'm sorry, both. Penny a day for PBS and NPR.
Go to dcreport.org. Follow David on Blue Sky and Threads. Get all his books. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. A great pleasure to learn from you, sir, as always.
Great pleasure to be with you, Pete. Take care.
All right, there he goes, David Cay Johnston. Thank you very much to him and to all of you for listening and supporting and subscribing and liking and sharing and doing all the things you can to spread the word. Send me your vitamin N, your nature photos. I am low on those. If you're listening here at the end, you bumblebees, I hope you'll come through for me. Get outside, do all the things, and I will be here tomorrow and talking to you then. And that's it. Support John Carroll and all of our rest of our very creative stand-up community members, many of which are linked at the end of every day's show notes. That's it. That's all. I'll talk to you later. Be the change you want to see. Good luck out there today.
When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it than now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand